In the world of sports, tensions can bubble to the surface in unexpected ways, and sometimes those tensions spill into public exchanges that leave fans and media buzzing for weeks. One such moment erupted recently, involving Nike CEO Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. A few sharp words, strategic comebacks, and some fiery statements were all part of the mix, creating a whirlwind of reactions that caught the attention of sports enthusiasts everywhere. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. To set the stage, A'ja Wilson, a powerhouse on the court, had made a pointed statement that caused waves. Her presence in basketball is undeniable, a force that commands respect with every game she plays. But even off the court, Wilson has shown that her words hold just as much weight as her stats. Known for being outspoken and unapologetically herself, Wilson voiced an opinion that wasn't just directed at the game or her competitors. It hit at the branding culture surrounding athletes. Enter Caitlin Clark, another figure who's no stranger to the spotlight. As the CEO of Nike, Clark has a reputation for steering one of the biggest sports brands in the world with a strong hand and an even stronger vision. But what happens when someone takes a swing at that vision? Clark didn't hold back. Wilson's comments seemed to strike a chord with Clark, prompting a swift and calculated response that quickly became the talk of sports media. The exchange wasn't just about words, it was about ideologies, about what it means to be an athlete, a brand, and a voice in a hyper-visible space. For Clark, defending Nike wasn't just a matter of business, it was personal. She's built a career out of not only promoting athletes but also crafting a narrative around what they stand for. In her mind, Wilson's statement wasn't just a critique, it was a challenge. Clark's response was sharp, direct, and made it clear that she wasn't going to let anyone, no matter how influential, undermine the work she's done. Nike, after all, represents more than just gear. It represents a global movement, a community that Clark has nurtured over the years. So, when Wilson made her comments, Clark stepped up, ready to defend that community. It's worth noting that Clark is not one to shy away from conflict. She's known for her quick wit and a bit of a no-nonsense attitude when it comes to defending what she believes in. The way she handled Wilson's statement was no different. Clark fired back with a confidence that spoke volumes, clearly unbothered by the possibility of stirring up more drama. In her view, this wasn't about taking jabs, it was about setting the record straight. But what exactly did Wilson say that sparked such a strong reaction from Clark? Without diving too deep into the specifics, Wilson's remarks touched on the commercialization of athletes and how brands like Nike had shaped the narrative around sports stars. Wilson, being one of those stars, seemed to be pushing back against what she saw as an overemphasis on marketing and branding, perhaps at the expense of the athlete's individuality. In other words, she was questioning the balance between the athlete as a person and the athlete as a brand. Clark, on the other hand, saw things differently. From her perspective, branding is what helps athletes elevate themselves to new heights. It's not about suppressing their individuality, but rather about amplifying it. Nike, in Clark's view, has always stood for giving athletes the platform to be themselves, and she wasn't going to let Wilson's comments suggest otherwise. What made Clark's response particularly interesting was how she managed to turn the conversation around without making it feel personal. While Wilson's words could have been seen as an attack, Clark framed her rebuttal as a defense of the athletes she supports and the work that Nike has done over the years. She highlighted how Nike has been instrumental in shaping the careers of countless sports figures, not just by giving them shoes and gear, but by giving them a voice. It's a fine line to walk, defending your brand without alienating the very people who make that brand successful, and Clark walked it with precision. Her response wasn't a takedown of Wilson, but rather a reminder of what Nike stands for. She painted a picture of a company that's always had the athlete's best interests at heart, and that's always been about more than just profits. That said, there was a bit of fire in Clark's words. She didn't mince her response, making it clear that she wasn't going to let Wilson's statement go unchallenged. It was a bold move, and one that only someone with Clark's experience and confidence could pull off. But it was also a move that highlighted a growing tension within the sports world. A tension between athletes who want to define their own narratives and the brands that help them do so. On a deeper level, the exchange between Clark and Wilson was about more than just branding. It was about the evolution of the athlete's role in modern sports. Today, athletes are more than just players on a field or a court. They're public figures, influencers, and business people. And as that role continues to evolve, so too does the conversation about how much control they should have over their own image. For Clark, that control is something Nike has always tried to give athletes. But for Wilson, it seemed as though the line between personal identity and brand identity was becoming blurred. Her statement was a call to reconsider how athletes are portrayed and how much say they have in that portrayal. And in a world where every move, every word, and every tweet is scrutinized, that's not an unreasonable concern. Clark's rebuttal was a masterclass in brand defense, but it also raised important questions about the future of athlete branding. As athletes continue to gain more autonomy over their careers and their images, brands like Nike will need to adapt. Clark's response may have been firm, but it also acknowledged the changing landscape of sports and the shifting dynamics between athletes and the companies that support them. In the aftermath of Clark's statement, there was a noticeable shift in the conversation. Fans and pundits alike began to consider the implications of this clash between two influential figures. It wasn't just about Nike versus Wilson. It was about the future of sports branding, the role of athletes in shaping their own narratives, and the balance between personal expression and corporate influence. While it's impossible to predict exactly how things will play out from here, one thing is certain. This won't be the last time we see athletes and brands butting heads. As athletes continue to demand more control over their careers, brands will need to find new ways to support them without stifling their individuality. Clark's response to Wilson was a clear indication that Nike is ready to meet that challenge head-on, but it also highlighted the delicate balance that brands must strike in this new era of sports. The tension between Clark and Wilson may have been resolved for now, but the underlying issues are far from settled. Athletes like Wilson will continue to push for more control over their image and their careers, and brands like Nike will need to keep up. Whether that means adjusting their approach to branding or finding new ways to collaborate with athletes, one thing is for sure: the conversation is far from over. In the end, the exchange between Clark and Wilson wasn't just about a single comment or a single rebuttal. It was a reflection of a larger shift in the sports industry, a shift that's been building for years. Athletes are no longer content to be just spokespeople for brands. They want to be partners, collaborators, and co-creators of their own narratives. And brands, for their part, are starting to realize that they need to adapt if they want to stay relevant in this new landscape. For Clark, this is both a challenge and an opportunity. As the CEO of Nike, she's in a unique position to shape the future of sports branding, and her response to Wilson showed that she's ready to take on that responsibility. But it also showed that she's not afraid to push back when she feels that her brand is being unfairly criticized. Clark's words, while measured and thoughtful, were a clear indication that Nike isn't ready to back down from its role as a leader in the sports world. But they were also a reminder that even the biggest brands need to be flexible if they want to stay at the top. The balance between branding and individuality is a tricky one, and it's a balance that Nike, under Clark's leadership, will need to navigate carefully in the years to come. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.